When that iceberg cracks open to reveal a 12-year-old boy, you think you're settling in for a standard Saturday morning cartoon. Instead, you get a masterclass in the horrors of genocide, imperialism, and systemic sexism. Avatar: The Last Airbender succeeds precisely because of a highly specific, airtight storytelling formula. And every time Hollywood tries to adapt it, they prove they completely misunderstand the assignment. Co-creators Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino deliberately rejected the episodic 22-minute reset buttons of Western animation. They built a long-form, serialized story, openly designing their narrative arcs as an homage to Japanese anime. Look at how they mapped this world. They anchored their fictional bending nations to real-world Asian and indigenous cultures. The water tribes reflect Arctic Inuit traditions, the Earth Kingdom draws heavily from China, and the air nomads modeled Tibetan Buddhist culture. They applied that exact same rigor to the magic system. There's no generic wand-waving here. Bending relies entirely on the stances and philosophies of authentic Chinese martial arts. By fusing serialized trauma with intense cultural grounding, they engineered a bulletproof property. Hollywood saw the massive ratings and immediately tried to cash in, and failed. M. Night Shyamalan's 2010 live-action movie immediately dismantled those cultural foundations. Despite Aang's origins in Tibetan culture, the production cast a white American actor, Noah Ringer, for the lead role. They repeated this erasure with the supporting heroes. The Inuit-inspired siblings were handed to white actors, including Jackson Rathbone as Sokka. Then the film leans into blatant Orientalism by exclusively casting brown actors to play the aggressive, expanding Fire Nation. Fans and critics dismantled the film upon release. By aligning heroic roles with whiteness and the villains with people of color, the movie forced a harmful narrative equating dark skin with malice. The original series spent 3 seasons delivering a sharp critique of colonialism. The casting decisions of the 2010 adaptation stripped away that nuance, leaving audiences with a textbook white savior story. If you want to measure the quality of an Avatar adaptation, you look at Prince Zuko. Zuko earns his legendary redemption because the writing acknowledges he is a victim of severe domestic abuse, who eventually chooses moral accountability over imperialism. Netflix recently attempted their own live-action series, pitching it as a remix. They wanted to capture the darker tone of the original, while dodging the errors of the 2010 film. They pushed the maturity level by explicitly depicting the brutal air nomad genocide during a festival, and they entirely removed the strict timeline of Sozin's comet to give the story breathing room. They also smoothed out the character flaws. They toned down Sokka's early sexism and isolated Katara, so her struggle to master waterbending becomes a solitary journey, rather than a bonding experience she shares with Aang. Depicting the tragedy of war gives a series gravity, but an adaptation ultimately lives or dies on its grasp of character logic. The magic of the franchise lies in watching flawed humans make incredibly painful choices. The true scope of this story becomes clear when you look at what happened after the 100-Year War ended, because peace immediately bred new political conflicts. In adulthood, Aang builds the massive metropolis of Republic City and fights a crime boss who uses bloodbending. But he also struggles as a father, isolating his older children by heavily favoring his only airbending son, Tenzin, in a desperate bid to preserve his extinct culture. He also faces a tragic physical irony. The century he spent frozen in suspended animation drained his life force, causing his body to fail and leading to his death at just 66 years old. Now, an upcoming animated movie will finally show us this era in theaters, with Eric Nam officially voicing a fully grown Aang. The film expands the lore by placing adult Zuko front and center, voiced by Steven Yeun. They are also introducing Togha, a brand new airbender frozen in ice for generations, voiced by Dave Bautista. This opens a legitimate path to rebuilding the lost air nomad civilization. The Avatar cycle doesn't exist to maintain a perfect, static world. It exists to guide the next generation through their inherited trauma. The franchise endures because it is entirely willing to let its heroes grow up, fail, and pass the torch.